Hi, welcome back to Family Secret TV. News stories ready. Watch till the end. The mediator slid the final settlement agreement across the mahogany table. Marcus's signature was already there. Bold, decisive, triumphant. All I had to do was sign my name and initial 3 places. Accept my $45,000 cash settlement. Keep my personal belongings and my 12-year-old Honda. And walk away from everything else. The house, the cabin, the investment properties, the retirement accounts. All of it would go to Marcus. His lawyer was trying not to smile. My lawyer, Beth, looked at me with barely concealed concern. Like I was a trauma victim making terrible decisions. She had no idea. Mrs. Lawson, the mediator said gently, "Are you absolutely certain about this? You're entitled to half of everything. We can fight this." I picked up the pen. "I'm sure." I watched Marcus's face as I signed. Watched the relief flood his features. Watched him exchange a victorious look with his lawyer. Watched him check his phone, probably texting her. They thought I'd broken. They thought I was too weak to fight. They had no idea that by demanding everything, by forcing me to walk away with almost nothing, they'd just handed Marcus the most expensive assets of his life. And I, the wife everyone pitied, the woman who'd given up without a fight, was about to walk away completely free while my ex-husband inherited a financial nightmare he didn't even know existed. But I'm getting ahead of myself. Let me start from the beginning, because you need to understand how we got here. How a marriage of 17 years ended with me signing away millions. And how the man who thought he'd won actually lost everything. My name is Jennifer Lawson. I'm 42 years old. And until 4 months ago, I was married to Marcus Lawson, real estate investor, landlord, and according to everyone who knew us, a very successful man. We had the big house in the suburbs, the lake cabin upstate, 7 rental properties generating passive income, retirement accounts worth over $800,000. On paper, we were worth approximately $3.2 million. On paper, Marcus was a financial genius. In reality, he was a house of cards held together by my silence. I met Marcus when I was 23. I just graduated from state college with a degree in accounting. Not exciting, but practical. Stable. The kind of degree that gets you hired. I got a job at Henderson and Associates. Small accounting firm. $48,000 a year. Benefits. Room to grow. Marcus was 28. Working in residential real estate sales. Charming. Ambitious. Always talking about his next big deal. We got married 2 years later. I was 25. He was 30. We had a small wedding. Practical. We saved the money for a down payment on our first house instead. That house was in a neighborhood that was about to turn around, according to Marcus. It didn't turn around for another 8 years. But Marcus had vision. He'd tell anyone who'd listen. Vision and timing. The first few years were good. I worked full-time at the accounting firm. Steady income. Steady benefits. Boring but reliable. Marcus bounced between real estate ventures. Some succeeded. Most didn't. When he needed money for a deal, I'd help. Cosign loans. Max out credit cards. Dip into our savings. "It's an investment in our future," he'd say. "You'll see." And eventually, he was right. By year 7 of our marriage, Marcus had built a small portfolio. 3 rental properties. All purchased with creative financing and aggressive leverage. By year 10, he had 6 properties. Then 7. The rental income started covering the mortgages. Then exceeding them. By year 15, we were bringing in $12,000 a month in rental income. Marcus quit his sales job. Became a full-time investor and landlord. And I kept working. Because someone needed to maintain the health insurance. Someone needed to have the stable income. Someone needed to be the responsible one. That someone was always me. Marcus loved being a landlord. Not the actual work. He hated fixing toilets and dealing with tenant complaints. But he loved the identity. He'd introduce himself at parties as a real estate investor. He'd talk about passive income and building wealth and financial freedom. He'd give advice to anyone who'd listen about getting into the game. What he didn't mention was that I handled all the accounting. I tracked every rental payment, reconciled every bank statement, filed every tax return. I managed the spreadsheets that showed which properties were actually profitable and which ones were bleeding money. I handled the books for 17 years. And about 3 years ago, while reconciling our accounts, I discovered something that made my blood run cold. It was a Tuesday evening. Marcus was at the lake cabin. His escape from the city, he called it. I was at home, going through our finances, preparing our tax documents. And I found a discrepancy. Property tax payments that didn't match the county records. I dug deeper, pulled up our mortgage statements, our loan documents, our property records. What I found was devastating. The house we lived in, our primary residence, the one we'd bought 17 years ago for $280,000, was now worth approximately $650,000. We'd refinanced it 4 times. The current mortgage balance was $720,000. We owed $70,000 more than it was worth. The lake cabin, purchased 12 years ago for $320,000, now worth about $480,000. Refinanced 3 times. Current mortgage, $530,000. We were $50,000 underwater. The rental properties were worse. 7 properties total. Combined current value, approximately $1.4 million. Combined mortgage debt, $1.6 million. We were $200,000 underwater on our entire rental portfolio. But where had all the money gone? I kept digging. Over the next 3 weeks, I traced every refinance, every cash out, every loan. The picture that emerged was catastrophic. Marcus had been pulling equity out of our properties for years, refinancing at higher balances, taking cash out, and spending it. Failed business ventures, $95,000. A boat he bought and sold at a loss, $42,000. Gambling losses I didn't know about, $68,000. An investment in a friend's restaurant that went bankrupt, $85,000. Lifestyle expenses, trips, watches, cars he'd upgraded every 3 years, another $130,000. He'd pulled out nearly $500,000 in equity over 6 years. And it was gone. All of it. But the properties were still generating rental income, right? That's what I thought. Until I looked at the actual numbers. 7 properties. Total rental income, $12,000 per month. Sounds good. Except the mortgage payments totaled $11,200 per month. Property taxes, $1,800 per month. Insurance, $900 per month. Maintenance and repairs, averaging $1,500 per month. Total monthly expenses, $15,400. Total monthly income, $12,000. We were losing $3,400 every single month on our rental portfolio. The passive income Marcus bragged about was actually passive loss. We were hemorrhaging money. And I was the only one who knew. Before we continue, please subscribe to Family Secret TV and tell me in the comments where you're watching from and what time it is there. I see everything, and your support means the world to me. Thank you. My first instinct was to confront him immediately. To show him the spreadsheets. Demand answers. Force him to see what he'd done. But I knew Marcus. I'd watched him operate for 17 years. If I confronted him, he'd spin it. Make excuses. Blame the market. Blame me for not understanding investment strategy. He'd find a way to make this my fault. So instead, I protected myself. I had my own money. Money Marcus didn't know about. My 401k from Henderson and Associates. I'd been contributing 15% of my salary for 17 years. It had grown to $382,000. That was mine. Separate property under the law. Earned from my job before we were married and throughout. Then there was my inheritance. My father had passed away when I was 35. Left me $215,000. His will specified, this money is for Jennifer alone. I'd kept it in a separate account. Never commingled it with Marcus's finances. Never used it for his deals. Marcus knew about it, but he'd never asked to use it. Probably because he was too busy refinancing properties to need it. I had $597,000 that was completely, legally, separately mine. So I protected it. I worked with my uncle, a retired estate attorney, to create an irrevocable trust. My 401k and my inheritance went into the trust for our daughter Emma's education and future. My name wasn't on it as a beneficiary. Marcus's name certainly wasn't. It was for Emma. Untouchable. Protected. Then I documented everything. Every refinance. Every cash out. Every failed investment. I created spreadsheets showing the actual monthly losses on the rental properties. I printed mortgage statements showing we were underwater on every property. I calculated our true net worth. Assets, $3.2 million. Debts, $3.4 million. We weren't wealthy. We were $200,000 in debt. And Marcus had no idea. I didn't confront him. I just waited. Because I knew Marcus. I knew his patterns. Men like him always move on eventually. They find someone who still believes in their vision. Someone who doesn't know about the debt yet. Someone who makes them feel successful again. I just had to be ready when it happened. 2 years of waiting. 2 years of watching him dig the hole deeper. Refinancing the cabin again. Taking out another $60,000. Buying another rental property with 0 down and a balloon payment. Spending money we didn't have on a lifestyle we couldn't afford. All while I quietly documented everything. Then, 4 months ago, he dropped the bomb. He came home on a Thursday evening. I was making dinner. Chicken marsala. His favorite. Because I'm apparently a masochist. He sat down at the kitchen table with this look on his face. Not sad. Not apologetic. Just matter of fact. I want a divorce. I turned off the stove. Okay. He blinked. Surprised by my calm. I've met someone else, he continued. I think we've grown apart. It's time we both moved on. Who is she? Her name is Ashley. She works at the gym. Of course she does. He cleared his throat. I want to be fair, Jennifer. I'm willing to give you a settlement. But I want to keep the properties. The house, the cabin, the rentals. I built that portfolio. It's my life's work. I just looked at him. 17 years of marriage. 17 years of co-signing his loans and reconciling his books and being the stable one while he chased dreams. And he wanted to keep everything. Your life's work, I repeated. Yes. Okay. He looked surprised again. Okay. I'll talk to a lawyer. See what's fair. He relaxed. Smiled even. Thank you for being reasonable about this. I hired Beth Morrison. 56 years old. 28 years of family law experience. She reviewed our assets. Our debts. Our situation. Then she looked at me. You're entitled to half of everything. The house, the properties, the retirement accounts. We fight for it. What if I don't want to fight? Beth stared at me. Mrs. Lawson, your husband is asking for assets worth over $3 million. You'd be walking away with almost nothing. I understand. Then I don't understand. Why wouldn't you fight? I smiled. Because I know something he doesn't. I explained everything to Beth. The underwater mortgages. The monthly losses. The refinances. The true debt hidden behind the impressive asset values. She read through my documentation for 90 minutes. When she finally looked up, her expression had completely changed. He doesn't know, she said slowly. He actually doesn't know he's underwater. No. He thinks the properties are worth what Zillow says. He doesn't realize what he owes on them. And when he takes full ownership, he assumes full liability for all the debt. I kept my voice calm. The mortgages, the balloon payments, the monthly losses. All his. Beth leaned back in her chair. What about your separate property? Your 401k and inheritance? Already protected in an irrevocable trust for Emma. Can't be touched in the divorce. She was quiet for a long moment. Then she smiled. Mrs. Lawson, I believe I owe you an apology. I thought you were giving up. You're not, are you? No, I said. I'm getting out before the ship sinks. The divorce mediation was almost too easy. Marcus's lawyer, Kenneth Dwyer, expensive and aggressive, laid out Marcus's proposal. Marcus keeps all real property. The house, the cabin, the 7 rentals. Jennifer receives $45,000 in cash, her personal belongings, her vehicle, and primary custody of Emma, with generous visitation for Marcus. Beth pretended to be outraged. This is completely one-sided, she said. My client is entitled to half of a $3 million estate. Kenneth smirked. Your client can fight if she wants. But Mr. Lawson is prepared for a long battle. He has the resources. I put my hand on Beth's arm. It's okay, I said softly. I just want this to be over. I don't want to fight. Marcus looked at me across the table. I think he expected gratitude. Maybe even affection. Like I should thank him for taking everything I'd helped him build. The mediator reviewed the terms. Mrs. Lawson, you understand you're relinquishing significant assets? I understand. And you're doing this voluntarily? Yes. I paused. I just want my husband to have everything he worked for. He built that portfolio. He should keep it. Marcus actually smiled. Thank you, Jen. I really appreciate you being reasonable about this. Beth kicked me under the table. But I kept my face neutral. Grateful. Maybe even a little sad. The perfect image of a woman who'd given up. The settlement included one critical document. An addendum. Detailed liability disclosure. Every mortgage. Every loan balance. Every debt tied to each property. When Marcus signed for the assets, he was legally assuming all liabilities. The mortgages would become his sole responsibility. The balloon payments coming due in 18 months. The monthly losses. All his. It was right there in the paperwork. Clear as day. But Marcus barely glanced at it. He was too busy winning. Kenneth Dwyer did try to do his job. 2 days before the final signing, he called Beth. I'd like to request a property appraisal and loan audit before we finalize, he said. Just to verify everything. Beth kept her voice neutral. Of course. We can provide whatever documentation you need. But when Kenneth brought this to Marcus, my soon-to-be ex-husband shut it down. No audits, Marcus said. I know what my properties are worth. I've been managing them for 17 years. Kenneth pushed back. With respect, I'd recommend we verify the loan balances before you assume sole liability. I said no. Marcus's voice was firm. Ashley wants this done. I want this done. No delays. Ashley. The 29-year-old girlfriend who thought she was dating a wealthy real estate investor. She had no idea she was about to become the girlfriend of a man drowning in debt. Kenneth, being a good lawyer, made Marcus sign a waiver. A document acknowledging that Kenneth had recommended an independent property valuation and loan audit, and that Marcus was declining against counsel's advice. Marcus signed it without reading. Just like he'd sign everything else without reading. Never underestimate the power of a new girlfriend to make a man skip the fine print. Ashley was worth her weight in gold to me. Best legal asset I never had to pay for. The divorce was finalized on a Tuesday. Same conference room. Same mediator. Different energy. Marcus arrived in a new suit. Expensive. Probably bought with money from another refinance. Ashley was waiting in the lobby. I'd seen her on my way in. Blonde. Fit. Scrolling through Instagram while sipping a green smoothie. She had the look of someone who thought she'd won the lottery. She had no idea she'd won a sinking ship. I arrived 10 minutes after Marcus. Simple gray dress. Minimal makeup. Hair pulled back. I looked tired. Defeated. Perfect. The mediator reviewed the final settlement. All real property transfers to Marcus Lawson, including primary residence, lake cabin, and 7 rental properties. Jennifer Lawson receives $45,000 cash, personal belongings, 2011 Honda Accord, and primary custody of minor child with standard visitation. She looked at me. Mrs. Lawson, this is your final opportunity to change your mind. Once you sign, this agreement is binding. I understand. You're certain? I picked up the pen. I just want this to be over. I signed slowly, deliberately, savoring every stroke. This was the moment I'd been waiting for. 3 years of documentation. 3 years of watching him dig deeper. 3 years of preparation. All for this. Marcus signed quickly. Barely glanced at what he was agreeing to. His lawyer looked uncomfortable. But the deal was done. The mediator collected the documents. Congratulations, she said, though she didn't sound happy. Your marriage is officially dissolved. Marcus stood up immediately. Extended his hand across the table. Thank you for making this easy, Jen. I shook his hand. I hope you get everything you deserve, Marcus. He smiled. He thought I meant it kindly. I did mean it. Just not the way he thought. I walked out of that conference room and straight to my car. Sat in the parking garage for 5 minutes. And finally, for the first time in 3 years, I let myself smile. Really smile. The kind of smile that comes from knowing something no one else knows. Marcus had just signed for one primary residence worth $650,000 with a $720,000 mortgage. One lake cabin worth $480,000 with a $530,000 mortgage. 7 rental properties worth $1.4 million with $1.6 million in mortgages. Total assets, $2.5 million. Total debt, $2.8 million. He was $300,000 underwater. And the monthly rental income didn't even cover the expenses. He was going to bleed $3,400 every single month. Plus, 2 of the rental properties had balloon payments due in 18 months. One for $90,000. One for $65,000. Payments he couldn't make without refinancing. But he was already maxed out on leverage. No bank would give him more credit. Meanwhile, I walked away with $45,000 in cash. $597,000 in a protected trust. No debt. No mortgage. No liability. And full knowledge of exactly how screwed Marcus was. I didn't have to wait long to see it unfold. The first cracks appeared within 2 months. I heard about it from Emma. Dad's been stressed, she said after a weekend visit. He keeps getting calls from the bank. Mortgage companies, I thought. Chasing late payments. By month 3, Marcus tried to refinance the primary residence. The appraisal came back at $645,000. He owed $720,000. No bank would touch it. By month 4, one of his tenants stopped paying rent. Marcus tried to evict. The process took 4 months. Meanwhile, he still had to make the mortgage payment. $3,400 monthly loss just became $4,800. By month 6, Marcus called me. I almost didn't answer. But curiosity won. Jen, he said. His voice was different. Strained. I need to ask you something. Okay. When you were managing the books, did you know about the mortgage balances? I was quiet for a moment. Then I told him the truth. Yes, Marcus. I knew exactly what you owed on every property. Silence. And you didn't think to tell me? I considered it. I paused. But then I remembered you said you'd been managing these properties for 17 years. I figured you knew your own finances. More silence. I'm underwater, Jen. On everything. I know. You knew? I've known for 3 years. His voice cracked. Why didn't you say something? Because you didn't want my input, Marcus. You wanted the properties. You got them. I can't afford these payments. I'm losing thousands every month. I know. The rental income doesn't cover expenses. It never did. What? Your portfolio has been losing money for years. I was covering the difference from my salary. But the rental income doesn't cover the mortgages, property taxes, insurance, and maintenance. I kept my voice calm. You were always about $3,000 short every month. I made up the difference. You never noticed because I handled the books. The line was quiet. I could hear him breathing. Jen, he said finally. Please. I need help. Can you loan me some money? Just to get through the next few months? I have $45,000, Marcus. The settlement you insisted on. That's all I have. It was technically true. The trust didn't count. That was Emma's money. But you worked for 17 years. You must have savings. I spent my savings covering your rental losses. Also technically true. The rest was in a trust he couldn't touch. Marcus was quiet for a long time. Then, this isn't fair. I almost laughed. You demanded everything in the divorce. You got exactly what you asked for. I didn't know it was like this. You didn't ask. You just assumed you knew better than the person who'd been managing your books for 17 years. I could hear anger creeping into his voice. You set me up. You knew this would happen and you let me take it. I didn't set you up, Marcus. I gave you exactly what you demanded. You said the properties were your life's work. So I let you have them. This is revenge. No, I said calmly. This is consequences. I hung up. He called back 3 times. I didn't answer. The collapse accelerated after that. By month 8, Marcus missed his first mortgage payment. The bank sent notices. By month 9, he was trying to sell properties. But when you're underwater, there are no buyers. Just short sales. Foreclosures. Losses. By month 12, the balloon payments came due. $155,000 total. Marcus didn't have it. He tried to get a personal loan. His credit was destroyed. Too much debt. Too many missed payments. The banks foreclosed on 2 properties. His credit score dropped to the low 500s. Ashley left him at month 10. Emma told me about it. Dad's girlfriend moved out, she said. She said she didn't sign up for this. For what? For being broke, I guess. I said nothing. But I thought, no one does, Ashley. No one does. By month 15, Marcus was meeting with bankruptcy attorneys. The man who'd spent 17 years building a real estate portfolio was now calculating which assets he could protect from creditors. The answer, almost nothing. The house went into foreclosure. The cabin went into foreclosure. 5 of the 7 rental properties were foreclosed. He sold the remaining 2 at a massive loss just to cover some of the debt. Marcus's mother called me once. Demanded to know what I'd done to her son. I gave him what he asked for, I said simply. He wanted the properties. I signed them over. But you knew, she accused. You knew about the debt. I knew what was in the documents he signed. Yes. And you didn't warn him? He had a lawyer, Mrs. Lawson. A very expensive one. The lawyer recommended an audit. Marcus refused. She sputtered. Said something about family and loyalty, and how could I be so cruel? I hung up mid-sentence. Some conversations aren't worth having. Emma asked me about it one evening. She was 14 now. Smart. Observant. We were sitting in our small apartment. 2 bedrooms. Modest. But it was ours. No mortgage. Just rent. Dad says you tricked him, she said carefully. Is that true? I looked at my daughter. Your father wanted all the properties in the divorce. I gave them to him. There was no trick. But you knew he couldn't afford them. I knew what the numbers were, yes. I paused. But your father managed those properties for 17 years. He signed every mortgage document. Every refinance. He should have known his own finances. She was quiet for a moment. Did you try to tell him? 3 years ago, I found out how bad it was. I thought about confronting him. But I knew he wouldn't listen. He never did. So you just let him take everything? I let him have exactly what he said he wanted. She nodded slowly. Good. I looked at her surprised. Good? He always acted like he was so successful. She looked at me. But you were the one making sure we didn't fall apart. I saw that. You did? I'm not blind, Mom. She smiled. I knew who really kept everything running. If you've made it this far, hit that like button if you think Marcus got what he deserved. And if you haven't subscribed yet, what are you waiting for? I've got more stories where this came from. Trust me. Now, let's finish this. 2 years after the divorce, I got a Facebook message from Ashley. The gym girlfriend. She apologized. Said she didn't know Marcus was in financial trouble when she started dating him. Said she felt used. Said she understood now why I'd left. I read the message twice. Then I deleted it without responding. Some people's awakening isn't my responsibility. Marcus filed for bankruptcy 18 months after the divorce. Chapter 7. Complete liquidation. Everything gone. Credit destroyed. Starting over at 49 years old. He moved into a studio apartment. Got a job doing sales again. The thing he did before he became a real estate investor. His Instagram, which used to be full of property photos and success quotes, went silent. His last post was from 2 years ago. A photo of the lake cabin. Caption, building an empire, one property at a time. The comments are still there if you scroll down. People congratulating him. Asking for investment advice. Praising his success. They don't know the empire was made of debt. As for me, I took my $45,000 settlement and rented a small apartment. Used the money to get settled. Furniture. Security deposit. First and last month's rent. The trust fund stayed exactly where it was. Emma's college fund. Protected. Growing. $597,000 when I created it. Now worth about $740,000 after 3 years of growth. She'll graduate college debt-free. She'll have money for a down payment on her first home. She'll have a safety net. Because I protected what mattered. I went back to work full-time at Henderson and Associates. They were happy to have me back. Promoted me to senior accountant within a year. I'm making $78,000 now. Benefits. Retirement matching. It's not exciting, but it's stable. It's mine. No one can take it. And after 17 years of covering Marcus's losses, stability feels like luxury. I ran into Marcus once. About 6 months ago. At a coffee shop. He was with a client. Doing a sales pitch for something. Our eyes met across the room. He looked older. Tired. The confidence was gone. Replaced by something that looked like humiliation. I could have ignored him. Could have walked past without acknowledging him. But I didn't. I walked over. Hi, Marcus. He stood up quickly. Uncomfortable. Jen. Hi. How are you? Good. Really good. Emma just got accepted to Northwestern. Full academic scholarship plus her trust fund. She'll graduate debt-free. He flinched. That's great. I'm happy for her. Thank you. We stood there for a moment. All the years. All the debt. All the consequences. Listen, he said quietly. I'm sorry. For how I treated you. For taking you for granted. For not listening. I know. And for a moment, I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. Take care, Marcus. I walked away. Some people ask me if I feel guilty. For not warning him about the debt. For letting him take properties he couldn't afford. For watching his whole life collapse. The answer is no. Not even a little. Because here's the truth. Marcus didn't lose everything because of one divorce settlement. He lost everything because he spent 17 years making bad decisions and having someone else clean up the mess. He lost everything because he valued image over reality. He lost everything because he refinanced properties to fund a lifestyle he couldn't afford. The divorce settlement was just the moment he had to face consequences without me there to cover for him. My grandmother used to say something I didn't understand until now. Never save someone from consequences they earned. You're not helping them. You're just delaying their education. For 17 years, I saved Marcus from his own decisions. I covered his losses, managed his books, made sure the bills got paid. And he never learned. Never had to face what he'd built. The divorce was just me stepping aside and letting him finally see. Emma asked me recently if I'd ever get married again. We were having dinner. Thai food. Her favorite. I don't know, I said honestly. Maybe someday. Would you want to? If I found the right person. Someone who valued partnership. Someone who listened. She smiled. Someone who actually pays attention to the numbers? I laughed. That would be nice, yes. I'm not angry anymore. I was, for a while. Angry that Marcus took me for granted. Angry that he thought he could just discard me and keep everything. But anger takes energy. And I'd rather spend that energy building something new. I started taking pottery classes. Something I'd always wanted to try but never had time for. Turns out I'm pretty good at it. There's something satisfying about creating something with your hands. Starting with nothing but clay and vision and patience. And ending with something real. Something solid. Something that's yours. Marcus's mother sent me a letter last month. Handwritten. 4 pages. She blamed me for her son's bankruptcy. Said I should have stopped him from taking the properties. Said I was vindictive and cruel. Said a good wife would have warned him. I read it once. Then I threw it away. Because here's what she didn't understand. I was a good wife. For 17 years, I was the best wife I knew how to be. I supported his dreams. Co-signed his loans. Managed his books. Covered his losses. I did everything a good wife was supposed to do. And the moment he found someone younger, he threw me away. So yes, when he demanded everything in the divorce, I let him have it. Not because I was cruel, but because I was finally done protecting him from himself. Thank you so much for watching. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever been the person holding everything together while someone else took the credit, I want to hear from you in the comments. Have you ever watched someone destroy themselves because they stopped listening to the person who actually understood how things worked? Tell me your story. And if you want more stories like this, stories about people who learned that taking everything sometimes means inheriting all the problems too, hit that subscribe button. More coming soon. Until next time, remember, the person managing the books usually knows more than the person taking the credit. And sometimes, the best revenge is just letting someone have exactly what they asked for.